The mysterious origins of Intef I. In the dim mists of history, where fact and legend intermingle, the early life of Pharaoh Intef I remains shrouded in mystery. Born into a world rife with instability and strife, his path to power was neither straightforward nor guaranteed. While historians agree that Intef I was likely the son of Intef I, there is speculation that he might have had to compete with siblings or other noble families for the right to rule. This uncertainty only adds to the intrigue surrounding his rise, painting a picture of a man who may have had to navigate treacherous waters before claiming his rightful place on the throne. Some tales suggest that as a young prince, Intef I displayed an extraordinary sense of wisdom and courage, qualities that set him apart from his contemporaries. It is said that he was a keen observer, learning from the mistakes of others and biding his time until the moment was ripe to assert his authority. The turbulent environment of Thebes, a city of immense strategic and religious importance, would have offered him ample opportunities to prove his mettle. Thebes, after all, was not just a political hub but a spiritual one, with its close association with the god Ammonius, an association that Intef I would later harness to cement his rule. There are whispers in ancient texts, half erased by time, that tell of an early rebellion in Thebes, where young Intef, still not a pharaoh, faced a formidable rival within his own court. This rival, perhaps a cousin or a powerful noble, sought to seize control, believing that the young prince was too inexperienced to rule. But Intef, with a blend of strategic brilliance and perhaps divine favor, quashed the rebellion with minimal bloodshed. This early victory not only secured his position but also earned him the respect and loyalty of his people, setting the stage for his future conquests. The cultural renaissance under Intef I. While much of Intef I's reign is remembered for its military campaigns and power consolidation, his contributions to the cultural and artistic life of Egypt are equally noteworthy. The 11th dynasty, though often overshadowed by the grandeur of the Old and New Kingdoms, was a time of significant cultural development, much of which can be traced back to the policies and patronage of Intef I. Pharaoh Intef I was not just a warrior king. He was a patron of the arts, keenly aware of the power of culture to unify and inspire his people. Under his rule, Thebes began to emerge as a cultural capital, attracting artists, architects, and scribes from across the land. The Saf tombs of El Tarif, where Intef I himself was buried, are a testament to the architectural innovations of the time. These tombs, with their distinctive colonnaded facades, represent a departure from the stark simplicity of earlier burial structures, hinting at a society that was beginning to rediscover its artistic heritage. Moreover, Intef I's reign saw a revival of religious texts and rituals that had fallen into disuse during the chaos of the First Intermediate Period. By commissioning the copying and restoration of ancient hymns and prayers, Intef I helped to preserve the spiritual traditions that were central to Egyptian identity. This cultural revival was not just about looking back, however. It was also about laying the groundwork for future developments. The religious text from Intef I's time would later influence the creation of the coffin texts, a crucial collection of spells and prayers that guided the deceased through the afterlife during the Middle Kingdom. The enigma of the Saf tombs. The Saf tombs, particularly those associated with Intef I, have long fascinated archaeologists and historians alike. These tombs, carved into the limestone cliffs of El Tarif, are unique to the Theban region and represent a significant departure from the funerary architecture of earlier periods. The word saf means row in Arabic, referring to the rows of pillars that front these tombs. These structures are not just burial sites but also places of worship, where the living could come to honor their deceased ancestors and participate in religious ceremonies. Intef I's tomb, though modest by the standards of later pharaohs, was nevertheless a grand affair for its time. The entrance to the tomb was flanked by a series of columns, leading to a long corridor that ended in a burial chamber. The walls of this chamber were adorned with scenes depicting Intef I's accomplishments and his devotion to the gods, particularly Ammonius. These scenes, while typical of Egyptian tomb art, also include unique elements that hint at the personal beliefs and ambitions of Intef I. For instance, one relief shows the pharaoh offering a rich sacrifice to Ammonius, with the god depicted not just as a man with a ram's head, but as a cosmic force, suggesting that Intef may first have seen himself as a ruler chosen by the divine to restore order to Egypt. The exact location of Intef I's burial chamber within the Saf tomb complex is still a matter of debate among scholars. Some believe that the original chamber may have been looted or destroyed, while others suggest that it was deliberately concealed to protect it from grave robbers. Whatever the case, the tomb's enigmatic design and the lack of certain details have only added to the mystery surrounding Intef I's final resting place. The Theban resurgence and Intef I's role in Egypt's reunification. Intef I's reign was a critical period in what would later be known as the Theban resurgence, a time when Thebes, under the leadership of the 11th dynasty, began to assert itself as the dominant power in Egypt. The significance of this resurgence cannot be overstated, for it set the stage for the eventual reunification of Egypt under Mentuhotep II, Intef I's successor and possibly his son. The Theban resurgence was not merely a political or military phenomenon. It was also a cultural and religious movement that sought to restore the traditions of the Old Kingdom while adapting them to the new realities of the time. Intef I played a crucial role in this movement by promoting the worship of Ammonius and by restoring the ancient rites associated with kingship. By positioning Thebes as both a political and spiritual center, Intef I ensured that his city would become the heart of a reunified Egypt. One of the most intriguing aspects of Intef I's reign is the way he used religion to legitimize his rule and unify the diverse peoples of Egypt. Unlike some of his predecessors, who relied primarily on military force to achieve their aims, Intef I understood the power of faith in binding a fractured nation together. His promotion of Ammonius, a relatively minor god at the time, as the chief deity of Thebes, was a masterstroke of political and religious strategy. Ammonius' rise in prominence during Intef I's reign can be seen as a reflection of Thebes' growing influence, with the god's fortunes mirroring those of the city itself. The decision to elevate Ammonius was not without its risks. The god's worship was primarily localized to Thebes, and many other regions were devoted to their own deities, such as Ta in Memphis and Re in Heliopolis. However, Intef I's careful diplomacy and religious policies helped to spread the worship of Ammonius beyond Thebes, eventually leading to the god's widespread veneration throughout Egypt. This religious unification was a crucial factor in the eventual reunification of the country, as it provided a common spiritual foundation for the people to rally around. Intef I in the Nile, the lifeblood of a nation. The Nile River, the eternal artery of Egypt, played a pivotal role in the life and reign of Intef I. For millennia, the Nile had been the source of life for the Egyptian people, providing water for agriculture, transportation, and sustenance. Yet, during the tumultuous First Intermediate Period, the river's life-giving floods became erratic, leading to periods of drought and famine that only exacerbated the country's political instability. Pharaoh Intef I understood the importance of the Nile in maintaining both the prosperity of his people and the stability of his rule. His reign saw renewed efforts to manage and harness the power of the Nile, ensuring that its waters were distributed effectively across the lands under his control. It is said that Intef I personally oversaw the construction of canals and irrigation systems in Thebes and its surrounding regions, projects that not only improved agricultural yields but also solidified his reputation as a ruler who cared deeply for the welfare of his people. There are legends of Intef I performing rituals along the banks of the Nile to ensure the river's continued bounty. In one such tale, the pharaoh is described as standing on a makeshift raft in the middle of the Nile, offering prayers and sacrifices to Hapi, the god of the river. According to the legend, his prayers were answered, and the Nile's waters rose to their proper level, bringing fertility to the land and cementing Intef I's status as a ruler favored by the gods. The afterlife of Intef I. Immortality in the sands. In ancient Egypt, the concept of the afterlife was central to the culture and religion, and for a pharaoh like Intef I, ensuring a safe passage to the next world was of paramount importance. The construction of his Saf tomb at El Tarif was only one part of his preparations for eternity. The inscriptions and rituals associated with his burial were meticulously designed to guarantee his immortality and to ensure that he would continue to watch over Egypt from the afterlife. The pyramid texts, which had been inscribed on the walls of royal tombs during the Old Kingdom, had fallen out of use by the time of Intef I. However, the spiritual beliefs they contained continued to influence funerary practices. Intef I's tomb, though more modest than the pyramids of his predecessors, was filled with offerings and goods intended to sustain him in the afterlife. These included food, drink, clothing, and even models of servants who would serve him in the next world. The belief in the pharaoh's divine nature meant that his death was not seen as an end, but as a transformation. Intef I, like other pharaohs, was believed to become one with the gods upon his death, particularly with Osiris, the god of the dead and the afterlife. His tomb thus served as a gateway between the mortal world and the divine, a place where the living could commune with the dead, and where Intef I could continue to exert his influence over the land he had ruled. The rituals performed at Intef I's tomb after his death were designed to ensure that his spirit remained at peace and that he continued to receive the offerings necessary for his sustenance. These rituals, carried out by priests, family members, and even common citizens, reflected the deep reverence in which he was held. The legacy of these practices can be seen in the development of the mortuary cults that became a central feature of Egyptian religion in the Middle Kingdom and beyond. The lost wisdom of Intef I, what might have been. As we reflect on the life and reign of Pharaoh Intef I, one cannot help but wonder about the many aspects of his story that have been lost to time. The fragmentary nature of the historical record means that much of what we know about this enigmatic ruler is based on speculation, inference, and the occasional lucky archaeological find. What other achievements might he have had? What insights into his personality, his thoughts, and his aspirations have been lost to the sands of time? Some historians believe that Intef I might have been a great philosopher king, whose wisdom helped to guide Egypt through one of its most challenging periods. There are hints in the surviving records that Intef I was a man of deep intellect, someone who understood the complexities of governance, religion, and human nature. If only more of his writings or decrees had survived, we might have a clearer picture of the kind of ruler he was, whether he was a strict autocrat, a benevolent despot, or perhaps something in between. There is also speculation that Intef may first have left behind a body of literature, philosophical treatises, or even poetry that has been lost to time. The idea of a pharaoh as a poet or philosopher is not as far-fetched as it might seem. After all, other rulers of the ancient world, such as the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, were known for their writings. Could Intef I have been a similar figure, a ruler who sought to capture his thoughts and ideas in writing? If so, what insights into the human condition, the nature of power, and the mysteries of the cosmos might he have shared? The enduring influence of Intef I. Though Intef I's reign was but a brief moment in the vast expanse of Egyptian history, his influence can still be felt today. His efforts to stabilize and unify Egypt during a time of great uncertainty laid the foundation for the achievements of his successors, particularly Mentuhotep II, who would complete the reunification of the country and usher in the Middle Kingdom. Intef I's legacy is not just one of political and military achievement. It is also a legacy of cultural and religious revival. The cultural renaissance that began under his rule would continue to flourish in the centuries that followed, leading to some of the most iconic and enduring achievements of ancient Egyptian civilization. The art, architecture, and religious practices that developed during this time would leave a lasting impact on the world, influencing cultures far beyond the borders of Egypt. Today, as we gaze upon the ruins of Thebes, the tombs at El Tarif, and the inscriptions that bear his name, we are reminded of the enduring power of history and the ways in which the actions of a single ruler can shape the destiny of a nation. Intef may first not be as well known as some of the other pharaohs of ancient Egypt, but his contributions to the country's history are no less significant. His story is a testament to the resilience, wisdom, and vision of a ruler who, against all odds, sought to restore order and bring his people together. Conclusion: the legacy of Pharaoh Intef I. As we reach the end of this exploration of Pharaoh Intef I, we find ourselves not just reflecting on the life of a ruler, but on the very nature of leadership and legacy. Intef I was more than just a pharaoh. He was a symbol of resilience in the face of adversity, a beacon of hope for a fractured nation, and a visionary who understood the importance of culture, religion, and unity in forging a strong and prosperous state. The 11th dynasty, which Intef I helped to establish, would go on to oversee one of the most successful periods in ancient Egyptian history. His efforts to consolidate power in Thebes, promote the worship of Ammonius, and revive the cultural traditions of the past laid the groundwork for the Middle Kingdom, a period that would see Egypt rise to new heights of power and influence. But beyond his political and cultural achievements, Intef I's legacy is also a reminder of the enduring power of history and the ways in which the past continues to shape our present. As we look back on his life and reign, we are reminded that the actions of a single ruler, no matter how seemingly small, can have far-reaching consequences that resonate through the ages. Pharaoh Intef may first not have ruled over a vast empire, but his impact on the history of Egypt is undeniable. His story is one of resilience, determination, and vision, a story that continues to inspire and captivate us today. And as we continue to uncover the mysteries of his life and reign, we are reminded that history is not just a collection of dates and events, but a living, breathing tapestry of stories, each one adding its own unique thread to the rich and complex fabric of human civilization.